friends, it's Kelly. Thanks so much for being here. I'm guest designing with Scrap Diva Designs this month, and I've used them to make a layout. I've used the flower pot gift card holder, and I'm just using the floral and leaf dies in that set. And I'm also using the shaker die set, as well as my baby words bundle. I actually use the baby words too, but in the bundle, when you get all three sets together, you save $10. So that's a really good value. That's 17 words in total, along with a shadow that you can cut to outline your word. So let's get started. So I've started on my layout just to speed this up a bit, and I start by designing my floral spray in the center, and then I build it out to either side. In this case, I went out on the left side, and what I'm going to do is just mirror the left side of that spray over on the right side of my layout, and so that makes it super easy and quick. I'm using a round metal pick just to give the die cuts, the floral die cuts, some shape. You could also use a pencil or anything small and round in your toolbox. What I actually like to do is make all my flowers and shape them first, and then layer and glue them together. And while I was doing all the die cutting, I was planning for uneven numbers of flowers, like either 7 or 5, because I always think that an uneven number looks better on your page. So I'm not sure if I mentioned, but I'm using Pinkfresh Studio Happy Blooms collection for this layout, and I just really like the colors, and I bought so much of it. I have so much still, but you know, that's okay. I will use it eventually, and it is really pretty. So I've used it to make my flowers and everything that you'll see coming up in the video. So right now I'm just pretty much building the right hand side of my floral spray. You can see that I've put sort of a wave in place, and I just thought that'd be more interesting than a straight line. Same with the leaves. In some cases I glued 2 leaves together. In some cases I shortened a leaf because I just didn't want them all to be identical and the same size. And so in some places there's a single leaf, some places it's a bundle of leaves, just trying to make it a little more variable, and I think that's more interesting to your eye when you're looking at your project. Now, everyone has their own style, and I'd encourage you to visit scrapdivadesigns.com. There's lots of really fabulous inspirations on the shopping site, or you can use the hashtag ScrapDivaDesigns in Instagram and check out what all the other gals are doing on Erica's team. They're quite amazing and inspiring. You can also check out at ScrapDiva29. That's their scrapbook address, or I'm sorry, their Instagram address, and you'll get a lot of inspiration there too. So I invite you to chime in the comments field. Do you enjoy making layouts, or would you consider making layouts with your Scrap Diva Design dies? I haven't seen any layouts on the website, and that's why I thought I'd give it a try and show another way of using Erica's cute dies. Moving on to some stitching. That turned out cute. So if you follow me for a little bit, you know that I do love to stitch on my layouts, and I'm using DMC floss in some complementary colors. Just want to show you, if you're using a skein of thread, pull it from the long band, otherwise you'll end up with one heck of a knot. So tie a knot at the end of your thread and pull it up through the bottom and go in the next hole. So one single stitch. Go up again through the next hole, under that first stitch, and down through the hole you came from. Easy breezy. And so I'll do a couple more. go in a hole and under the previous stitch and back down through the hole you came from. And that's the chain stitch. I have other examples on my website, but this is so easy, and I think it adds a lot to your project. So I went ahead and chain stitched 5 lines in different colors that complement my layout. And here's the shaker that I pre-built. I added foam tape to the back of my shakers and placed them with the same color on my layout. So here's how I went about that. I made a custom sequence mix of the colors in my layout. I used one of the dies to cut out the background and 2 of the circle dies together to cut out the very narrow frame. And the larger circle, I cut out a piece of acetate, and that's what I'll pop up with foam tape over top of my sequence mix. And oops, I got some glue where I didn't want it, so I'm just using some unglue to take that away. Works great. Put the lid back on my glue. Unglue, undo, I meant to say. So just put a piece of plain white paper down on my mat so that I wouldn't get debris on my acetate. And I'm using some foam strips from scrapbook.com. They're pre-cut, and I believe they're 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch. And they're just awesome because they're very flexible and you can go around things no problem. It's much better than trying to cut foam tape on your own. And so once I've got it trimmed off nicely, then I will pull off the paper cover, and just adding a few more sequins here, and stick it in place, just doing my best to center it. And I'll put this back on my scratch paper on my desk so that it stays nice and clean. So I applied those to my layout and start working on my title. And I've used a couple of words from the Baby Words die set number 2. I use sweet and joy. So you don't really just have to use these on baby layouts or baby cards. Some of the words can be put together really for any type of project. So I cut each word out of plain white cardstock twice, and then I cut it out of some designer paper that matches my collection once, and I put them all together, and that makes a nice thick word that's almost like a piece of ephemera that you'd get in the collection. And then I used the shadow die, and I cut it out of vellum, and I popped up the word over top of that and centered them at the top of my layout. I actually used some foam tape behind them as well so they'd stand up off the background. Once I had my title in place, I added a few more bits from the Happy Blooms collection. Just some things I fussy cut out of different pieces of paper in the collection, some teeny tiny butterflies, and some little floral frames. They look like floral picture frames, and I cut out 3 of those because, again, uneven numbers look better to me. And I added some texture just by bending up a corner and gluing them in place. So next up, I'm going to add some photographs in the same shaker die, except I'm going to omit the sequins and the acetate covers and just put photos in place instead. So did you notice my shakers now have little bows? It's a Pinkfresh Studio die. I believe it's called Bows. You get 2 different sizes, and I just thought it added an extra pretty touch. They're about 2.5 inches wide when they're finished. So I'm just going to show you how I use the shaker die set to make frames for photos, and I cut out my photo with the larger circle die in the set, and I backed my photo with some plain white cardstock. I cut that out with the same die, just because my photo paper at home is a little flimsy and not very thick. So I'm going to pop up my photo on the shaker background, the pretty pink floral you see there. And then I'm going to add a frame that I cut out the same way I did as the shaker dies. And I just applied that with glue. And then I'm going to pop up the whole thing with some foam tape and place it at the bottom of the pink thread. Now you see me playing with this a little bit. Once I added the bow, it overlapped the shaker on the left, and I didn't want that. I wanted them all to hang independently. So I move it up, I move it down, and in the end, I placed it one stitch below where my stitching ended, and I went back and just added one extra stitch. It just had to be balanced. I could have it no other way. So that's how I worked that out. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? But yeah, I wanted it to be looking very similar to the other dies, the distance between them. So I used a piece of ephemera from the collection at the bottom, and it says, "Love each day," and we do with our pets. And then I used a few more flowers I had left over from my floral banner at the top, and a couple of leaves and another butterfly, so that makes 3 butterflies on this layout. And of course, again, that is an uneven number, and that's the way I like to work with my ephemera. And so this is coming to the end. I'm just going to add a few sequins, and they're from, oh, I'm sorry, not sequins, gems. They're also from Pinkfresh Studios, and I added them in pink and mauve, and just to add a little more sparkle. I mean, you can always add a little more. You have to kind of use your intuition to know when to quit. But I was pretty happy with the finished product, and I hope this inspires you to use some of Scrap Diva Design dies to make your own layout in the future. I want to apologize for the color changes throughout this video. It got very late as I was finishing. It was after midnight, and so I had some bright lights going, and I had to post edit the color for lightness so you could see what I was up to. Finishing with some stickles and some gold paint applied with the tip of my paintbrush. And please visit the other girls on the design team. You're going to really love what they're doing as well. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider subscribing. Likes are also appreciated. See you again soon. Bye-bye.